Bonjour and merci for the invitation. I will speak English because my French is not that good. My grandfather used to speak French, but I was born in Catalonia, speaking Catalan, Spanish, and English. Our problem in Catalonia with the big wildfires is just the same, like the one we have seen today in France, in Australia, in United States, in Greece. It's just the same because climate change, because change in our society, because the abandon of our land, our farms, and people going to the city, the problem is growing and growing. So we've been facing big wildfires, an average of a fire bigger than 10,000 hectares every 3 years. So in the 70s, a big wildfire for us was something of 1,000 hectares. In the 80s, something big for us was something about 5,000 hectares. In the 90s, was something about 10,000 hectares. Now the big wildfires are more than 20,000 hectares. So the problem keeps growing and growing and growing. And what I will try to explain is how we as a fire service are trying to adapt to the new problem and trying not to fight and keep fighting and keep trying to fight wildfires that are overwhelming us, which is how we change our strategy to be able to still protect our people, to be able to still have forests to manage, and to make sure our landscape is still there after the fire season. So that's our mind right now. So the main issue for us is just to change the focus from the smoke to the forest. I'm a firefighter, but I need to train my people to think about what we are trying to protect. We are not soldiers. I understand that we as the firefighters, sometimes we fight, or we pretend to fight, but we are not soldiers, and our main objective, our main goal is not to fight fire. It's just to protect people and forests. So we need to make sure that fire service understands what we are protecting, which is the forest. So another thing that we need to understand and focus on is that fire in Catalonia is a natural thing. It's a natural disturbance. It's created by lightning every year. Of course, fire is basically caused by human activity, 80%, but 20% is natural cause. If we make sure that we can stop human or people creating wildfires, we still will have wildfires. Wildfire has been there for centuries before the first man put up foot on our land. So we need to recognize that and look at the fire problem not as a devil, just as something we need to adapt and make sure we can survive with in our land. Because confronting fire in the last 50 years has shown only one thing: we will lose. The fire will get bigger. Will become not so often burning our lands, but when the fire will burn the lands, like the Australian guy said, it will become bigger and will spread faster. So now we have 99.8% of success. That means 99.8% of our fires are less than 1 hectare. Only 0.2% of our fires burn more than 1 hectare. But those 0.2 fires, they burn 98% of our surface. So that's the paradox. And that's not something new. We've been explaining that for the last 20 years. So we are becoming better at fighting fires. But because climate change and because the fires that can burn at higher speed than the one we can fight, sooner or later will go over our threshold of control. The day we will lose the fire will have a lot more room to burn and will become bigger. So that's reality. And I can keep closing my eyes and telling my political boss what I need for the next season: bigger planes, more engines, more firefighters. But that will not be the right answer. What I need is to manage land, to understand problem, to teach my society, to make sure that we all share the risk and we all, as a society, work together to a goal that is to be able to live in this country with fire, but not praying because if a fire happens, I will lose everything. Just knowing that if a fire happens, I will be able to minimize the damage. And that's the goal we are working on. And the other danger we face is that we need, as a society, to take a decision. And that decision today is a strong fight between the ones that want us to be firefighters mainly defending or firefighters mainly fighting fires. Because civil protection is there. A lot of effort has to be put on defending people and houses. And doing that, we are losing efforts on fighting fire, managing fires. So we need to make sure we are fighting to say we are a fire service. It's so an euro invest in attacking a wildfire, reducing fuel load, it pays back a lot more than an euro invest in defending. Because defending, it's just a death trap. When I am defending, I cannot choose my strategy. I have to defend the assets where they are. When I am doing a strategy and a planning, I can decide where I will be stronger, and I can put my people in a safer position, and I can be smart. But defending, I cannot be smart, I cannot choose. I have to be there. So that's another decision we are doing. And a lot of our society is pushing us to make sure we will defend them. And we as a fire serving are saying, we will help you, but you have to auto-protect yourself if you want to make sure we can defend all our landscape. So that's the fight that's going on now in our country. The people is living under not a realistic security. Since we have been fighting fires for the last 50 years there, they think that the fire regime we used to have 20 years ago as the normal fire regime. And they assume that if fires are becoming bigger, it's because we fail. And we are teaching them that it's not because we fail. We can fail, of course, we are human. And we can make some mistakes. But situation is changing, fire regime is changing, climate is changing. So you need to be better protected yourself if you want to make sure I can do my job and you can survive the problem. So it's a kind of complex thing. It's not about the engine or the plane I will use tomorrow. It's about convincing my society, my politicians, that this is a huge problem our society have. And like Johan said this morning, this is not a problem politicians, people understand how it is. They don't see that at the top of their priorities. So that's our role. So that's what I am showing normally to my politicians, and I agree with Gabriel about the definition of what a big wildfire. For us, a big wildfire is any fire that can run and faster and over our threshold of control, so it's overwhelming us. That's a picture of a starting point after a fire of the day before. That's 4 minutes, 7 minutes, 9 minutes, 11 minutes. That's a big wildfire, something that's overwhelming me. It's not about the surface, it's about speed, it's about behavior. And if I have forests that will allow that type of behavior, it's a matter of time. I will lose everything. It's what I'm saving today is not decreasing the risk. It's just increasing the risk for the next year. And that's just a big weight over our heads we cannot solve. So this is only 4.9 kilometers an hour of a spread. But listen to me, last year, it's something not new in Australia and America, but it's something new in Europe. Last year, the fire that we fought with the French together in the border with Spain in L'Empordà, La Junquera, was 12 kilometers an hour in average, with a peak of 18 kilometers an hour, with a spotting distance of 11 kilometers. No way we can fight it. Just open our eyes and be ready. The storm is here. It's a matter of time. So how we get out of there? All we are doing until now is driving a road to the fire. We need to drive the road in the other way. outside the fire. So not understanding what's building up the problem is making the problem bigger. We are fighting flames, but flames are not the problems. Flames are the last part of the problem. It's the final stage of the problem. Those are the flames, not the beginning of the problem. So how we think, how our society is thinking, how our politicians are thinking, that's how they are thinking. I've been using those slides for the last 10 years, but they still are good today. So when a fire, people don't understand about fire, see that's fire, they used to send direct attack fire engines. We all do that. If the fire gets more intense, what people, politicians or fire service normally do? Just send more resources, including aerial resources. And what about if we get crowning fire? What we will do? Just keep sending more resources. There is not a change in a strategy. All we do as Europe is just keep sending resources, but not addressing the problem from the beginning. It's not normal that the fire service is the one telling society, listen guys, it's grown. You don't need to invest in us in resources. We need to invest together in society to solve the problem. It's a complex problem. It's not a problem of resources or a problem of I am good or I am bad. It's a problem I need a different strategy to address the problem. So this is our statistics. You said something the same we have seen from France, the same we have seen from Greece. It's the same. So we have a problem, we create a fire service, we start to solve the problem in average, except the bad years. That's fire paradox. When you get bad weather, you get wildfire because the fuel is building up. But in that graphic, I just break what is a brush wildfire, which is the yellow, and what is a crown wildfire, what is the brown. As you see, since we created the fire service, bad years, the crown part is becoming more important than the brush part. Why? Because fighting fire in the brush is easier than fighting a crown fire. Crown fire will get out of control. A brush fire, if I put resources, I will be able to fight it. So this is showing that we are just taming the problem. We are changing the fire regime from small and medium-sized fires every year to only big fires, but more separated in time. Like the Australians said, we get less fire, the return period between fire is longer, so the intensity of the fire is higher and the size of the fire is bigger. So the same problem everywhere. And we've seen that for the last year, and I really like it because 12 years ago when I was in Portugal I was a student, I was listening to Gabriel or Dr. Viegas, and we were explaining that was a problem mainly in the United States. And when we were saying that's happening here, the big guys were saying, well, we are running into a problem. But listening to him today, I realized that Greece is deep into that problem again. So everybody is going into that problem. And I've seen the forecast for France this morning. Central and northern part of France is going to that. So good news for us, job will not be ending soon. So that's what we call fire generations. And that's difficult to understand. But I did that concept to explain my people and my boss and my politicians what's the problem and what's the evolution. So I call the first fire generation. It happens back in the 60s when my people start to go from the vineyards and the almond trees to the city. And then we start to have a lot of new surface. So suddenly the speed of the fire starts to go to be higher than the speed of the fire service. So the continuity of full load was the problem. So we hired more firefighters. In the 70s, we had the second generation of fire. It was not a matter of continuity. It was again speed. Speed because a lot of more fuel was on the ground, well, like we have seen in the graph we have seen today. So we buy more ground resources, fire engines, basically. So the third generation in the 80s, it was again a problem of intensity. I cannot fight the fire from the front because it was too intense. So again, was a full load problem. So aerial resources were in place again. So fourth generation, it was intensity inside urban interface. So we use ground resources, more firefighters, aerial resources, a lot of science, techniques, simulators, GIS. GPS, all what science can apply. And now we are in the 5th generation of mega fires. And still, what we are trying to do is just cooperate, just to share resources internationally. French coming to Catalonia, Catalonians go to France, people to England, England down. So, because we cannot pay a lot of resources by ourselves, so we need all the other people resources to fight our fire. But think about that. It's like we have been trying to solve a problem in the wrong way. So imagine that in the medical terms. We have a pandemic. And instead of trying to fight a solution for the virus that is causing the pandemic, we are just buying new beds for bigger hospitals, but not solving the problem of the pandemic. That's what we've been doing. We've been buying resources, but not attacking the full load problem. What are we doing? Where are we looking at? What are we expecting? That's not the way we are expecting. So that's what we are trying to do in Catalonia, is just create a new concept of fire service, not because we are smart people, because we know we have lost too many battles and we are in the way to lose the war. There's no way we can win that war if we don't change the strategy. The facts are those. We have changed in the last 30 years, from 45 to 71% of forest in our landscape. Almost double the forest surface. That's a huge change. We have 36% more fuel load in our plots. That means that in what was a low-risk weather in the 80s now can create high-risk fire behavior because there is a lot more dead fuel in the ground. A picture like the American has showed to us and all that dead forest. So the rate of spread of our fires, the big fire, have changed from 1.6 kilometers an hour to 4.8 kilometers an hour in 15 years. Any in this room knows which one is the average speed of firefighting for the French, for the Spanish, for the Greeks? What's the average speed of firefighting? We don't know exactly, but it's not more than 2 kilometers. It's maybe close to 1 kilometer in our best day, but it's below 1 kilometer. So what can we do? The average spotting distance, it changes from nothing to 1 to 3 kilometers, and we have extreme spotting more than 10 kilometers. Those are the facts, and to fight that, we need to change. And of course, that's what Catalan fires are managing. I can say one thing. Fire has managed a lot more surface in 50 years than we, the government, have managed. So fire, at the end, is the manager of those surface. We can agree or not, but this is a fact. So better start to adapt to that than be negative with that idea. So I use that change to stop the fire. That's reality. We've been so successful the last 10 years because we've lost so much 10 years before. So there's a lesson to be learned here. If we can emulate the fire regime, we can succeed. If not, what I see here is a good time for me to leave fire service and go to work somewhere else, because we are creating continuity again. So there is not much. I will not be lucky. I know. Sooner or later, we'll go to the big wildfires. So we learn, and we start to classify all our fires to say, okay, listen to us. We can learn from the fire in the past and see how they spread. So we look at that, and we realize that we have different types of spread in our landscape. Is what we say the fire types. That's something that Sebastian, a firefighter from the region, is trying to do in France also, and we are cooperating, and we are learning also from you. So we know that all these types of fires have a different type of spread. They will turn left or turn right or spread following that logic or the other logic. So that means that the strategy we are choosing, looking at our fire regimes, is to understand how important in every area of our country, every type of spread is. So every morning, according to the fire risk, we can say our firefighters, if they are well trained, which strategy they have to apply. So how they have to start the initial attack and not to wait for the big guys of the incident command system to be there and plan a strategy. So our approach to the big fire problem is just to train our firefighters to be able to take decisions about the strategy and to be able to go in front of the fire, not in front of the flames, not to be reactive to the fires, just to think about what fire want to do and what they can do to stop it. Not in the old way, a good way, looking at the fire and then thinking what we have to do. So that has been our strategy in the last years and has been working well. Has been working well because we've changed from a 10,000 hectares average per bad day we used to lose to a 2,000 hectares per bad day we are losing now. But this is not a solution. This is just a step to be more efficient doing our work. But if nobody else is working on the full load landscape problem, we will lose again sooner or later. So we need to work together and teach to the society and politicians what we know about fires to make sure that they do their job while we are our job risking our service to protect the assets they pay us to protect. So that's the strategy. That's a change. I put the more important fire types, mainly the topographic ones, the north wind fires, the west wind fires, all other type of fires, and the convective fires. Look at the 80s. Look at the 80s. The northwest winds were the most important just with the topographical fires. Topographical fires are easy to fight with our resources, and the northwest winds, they have permanent directions. It's a good strategy to build. But look at the 90s. Suddenly the convective are becoming important. And look at now. It's a matter of two types of fire, northwest wind or convective. What that means that we as a firefighters, we normally lose the northwest winds, like the French we've seen, and we lose the convective one or the plume-dominated wildfires. And then those are becoming the dominant fire types because we are not being effective fighting those fires. And this is because the full load, and this is because climate change is affecting. The convective wildfires are mainly happening under what we call heat waves coming from Sahara. Back in the 60s, we used to have one heat wave once every 5 years. In the 90s, we used to have 2-3 heat waves in a year. Last year, we had 6 heat waves in a row. So that's the climate change effect, and that's how it's affecting our way. So looking about solutions, we need to realize that lining fires are natural, so fire is natural in our area. We get every summer natural fire, so adaptation to fire is maybe the solution. Our vegetation has all the tools to survive wildfires. It's cerodnus cones, it's sprouting, has a thick bark, so there is not a problem our forest. This is the problem we have. That's the big fire, but this is the fire that is not so a problem. But please tell me which fire we will be able to fight. This one or this one? Which one is creating bad effects and which one is creating more or less effects we can sustain our landscape? I tell you, this one will burn all what they can burn because we'll do nothing to it. We'll try, but we'll do nothing. And this one will do nothing because we'll fight him and win. So what we are doing is applying negative selection. So the bad one is surviving, and the not so bad one is killed right away in the spot. So again, a problem we have here. So that's the effect of low intensity fire, and this is the effect of a high intensity fire. The only problem is that the line is where we stop one fire. The separation between the dark and the green is where we stop a low intensity fire, and then a few days later we had a new fire that burned all we saved. If we let that burn into the bottom, we've saved that forest. So a lot of things to think. So changing landscapes is the patch dynamic concept to protect our forests, but the change in the way we manage wildfire also is creating change in ecosystems. in the disturbance and the resilience of our ecosystems. So we know, we've seen that, the fire weather will create new scenarios. We've been simulating those new scenarios. And basically, if we change the way we manage wildfire, we will change from a fire regime that is creating a lot of big wildfires. So the green is the burned surface and the blue is the not burned surface. So that's an actual fire regime. We have a big fire event every 15, 20 years. And if we apply forest management, we can get a more stable situation. Fires will still be there, but will be a more stable situation than the one we have now. So that's what we're looking for in the future, to change our fire regime to a more predictable and sustainable levels than the one we have now, putting all our efforts. We've done all the simulation, and what it comes to us is that if we double our extinction capacity, our resources we have, the intensity per hectare burn will increase. And that's very well explained. That's the fire paradox. So if we are more effective fighting wildfires, since the period between the fire returning to the same place will be longer, the intensity will be higher. So in the other way, if we increase our managed fires, trying to mimic the effect of the fire regime, and 20 years ago, all those patches, the main intensity per hectare will decrease for the same effect. So our assessment is just let's manage. But as you've seen here today, to believe in the prescribed burning cannot do everything, because the windows of prescription, they are becoming narrow and the public is not accepting very well the prescriptions. But we know that we need to burn 1% of our surface, so we need to burn around 12% of our 12,000 hectares per year. Now we are burning 2,000 hectares per year every summer during our fire season. But 10 years ago, the average was 12,000 hectares per year. And that's why we became to have a problem with not a big wildfires, because the fire were making the fire regimes needed to break the landscape in patch dynamics. So maybe to start using the fires to do that management. So that's a picture of what we are creating. Look at this forest, big trees, and our fire, this is a lining fire. Look at that patch over there. You see all the old trees, the big ones. Maybe there is one tree for every 5 meters. Look at that stand, how dense the regeneration is there. In 20 years, that regeneration will be higher trees, and this forest will be able to carry a crown fire and will be gone. Why? Because we've been fighting the fires there for the last 30 years. So the way we manage wildfire is changing the patch dynamic. We are a tool in that problem. We are not people trying to do our best. We are having an effect. We as a tool can change the way we work. We as a tool can change the effects we have. That's a lesson we learned. But we need to say to the society that's what's happening, and they need to tell us you are allowed to do that or not. We cannot take that decision by ourselves. We can only say the problem we are facing. So, just to finish, what can we do? Understand the reality of fires, managing the landscape to adapt it to the main disturbance, and teach our society. So, we can keep trying this type of policy, but I think that this policy is a lot better. The same fire, one is killing everything, and this one is saving the forest. I spend a lot of money there to try to protect that forest. I spend a lot of knowledge there to manage that fire. This is the difference. So we need to build a fire community to share all what we know, to share opportunities, to share knowledge, to share experience, and we need to learn one from each other. There is no way in Europe that fire from Sweden are not known in the Mediterranean and the other way. Our area where we work is too small. That fire regime is not happening on our scale. We need to work at the continental scale and broaden our minds. That's the only way we will learn. So we need to change from total fire exclusion to integrated fire management. Something needs to be done. And we need to be ready to live with fire. That's what needs to be done. Thank you.